Podcast reels are a great way to build connection with your audience. So you have a mic, you're talking to somebody, and all that we see is a side view of your conversation, of you making a point of something that you truly believe in. And so these are great for giving that more personal approach to your content. Luckily, I have a podcast to film today, so I'm going to show you my setup as I set up to film my podcast reel. Hi, I'm Wonderful Ida, an educational video producer based in Vancouver, Canada. When it comes to my filming setup, I like to keep most of my lights there and everything all set up and ready to go because I really believe that the simpler your setup is, the more likely you're going to stick with it. So you can see my light just sits above my desk, and then I have another light here, and then I have a background light I turn on. So let's turn on all these lights and turn on the final light. So you can see it's all ready to go. So now that this is set up, I am going to need to set up my camera. So I'm just gonna put you down here. And so I've got my trusty tripod, and I like to set it up in front of my camera. Okay, so I'm gonna wanna set up my camera now. And I want it to be shot vertically. The reason is because it's so much, if you want to shoot it horizontally, then it's going to be really wide, and if you want to make this into a vertical post, you're going to have to be really far back for it to actually be worth it. So instead, it's best to just angle your tripod so that the camera is vertical. There we go. So I'm going to check my shot and make sure my settings are all right and back it up a little bit. I want kind of a wider shot so it's not too zoomed into my face. You're also going to want to have a couple of mics. So one mic on you that is connected to the camera, and then one mic that is going to be connected to the computer. Because this way you're going to have good audio for both the podcast that you're on, and you're going to have good audio in your camera. I also like to have my headphones plugged in, because having your headphones plugged in is going to stop it from maybe having feedback, and you're not going to hear the speaker of the podcast, because the key here is to get your audio, not their audio. And when you're editing, it's a lot easier if you don't have to listen through all of it. Instead, you can only go to the parts in your waveform where you are talking, so it's going to be easier to edit. You'll see that later. And then it's just a matter of fine-tuning your shot. So make sure that if you sit down, you're not too low, because this is like kind of awkward. So I think I'm going to stand for this podcast so I can look good on the camera and there. And I like to see myself on there just so I can make sure everything's good. So it looks a little bit dark. I'm going to change my exposure. And I can also see that this wall here is a little bit crooked. So I'm going to straighten that. There we go. And let's change the exposure. I don't like this computer right in here, so I might go more to the side so it's not getting too much attention. I have my microphone. Let's put my microphone here. No, let's have a microphone here so I can see it in this shot. So now I'm gonna go and I'm gonna film my podcast. So I'll see you guys soon. I want to share with you the importance of lighting. So as I was on call, I only had the one light here on the side, and they mentioned that my video quality was a little lacking. So I quickly pulled out another light and I put it in front of my camera. So having your next light in front and above your camera is going to be a game changer. So I'm going to turn this on. There's my light, and you can see instantly my video quality looks a lot better. So I'm done recording my podcast. It went great, and now it's a matter of downloading the footage onto my computer and then editing the clips. So to edit my footage, I am going to be using DaVinci Resolve. DaVinci Resolve is a free editing software that you can use, and I'm going to show you how you're going to maneuver your way through the editing software to edit out your reels. When you first open up DaVinci, it's going to start you here. This is where all your projects lay. So you can see I have some projects already started here, but if you don't have any projects yet, there's going to be nothing here. So I'm going to start a new project, and I'm going to name it what the podcast is, and it's just going to take a moment to open. Because most of the video in here is already set for horizontal filming, we first need to change what our video timelines are going to be so that we can edit it as a vertical video. So here on the bottom, you're going to want to go to this third tab, Edit. This is where you're going to be able to edit all your videos, and then you're going to want to add your clips to your media pool. So you can add them by right-clicking, import media, and then finding the clip. So you can see I have my clip right here of my podcast. Now I'm going to need to make a project timeline where I can edit that video clip. So to do that, I'm just going to right click here and I'm going to go to create new timeline. I'm going to name this podcast master. And I need to change the settings because the default settings in here are horizontal and we want to create a vertical video. So I'm going to click use project settings and then format, and I'm going to change it to 1080 by 1920. So you can see here, this is where my project is going to appear in the next window. I have my video. What I can do is I can just slide my video onto the timeline. You can see in the preview here that my video is vertical. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to try to cut this down into chunks. Because I used my headphones while I was recording, you aren't able to hear what I hear, so you're not able to hear the speaker. You're only going to be able to hear me. And if you see here, there's going to be your video file and your audio file down at the bottom. You can extend your audio file so it's a little bit bigger. And then what you're going to do is you're going to start looking for where your waveform is. So I'm going to go back to the beginning, and then I'm going to see here, you can see I'm talking. And so at first here I was just talking because we met before the actual show, so I know that's not important. I'm just going to check if I start here. Okay, there we go. This is still getting prep. And then you can see when you don't see talking, the waveform is really small. So you know there's nothing there and you can just skip all that part. So I'm just gonna go forward until I talk. So here is my first big section of me talking. So in order to just have these parts, I can cut it. So I can switch between being my arrow tool and my blade tool. My blade tool is gonna allow me to cut this stuff. So I'm going to press B so I can switch into my blade, and I'm going to make a cut before the audio, and then I'm going to select this clip beforehand, press the delete button. I can click in that space, and then I'm going to ripple delete. So this is just basically going to bring this back to the beginning for me. So I know here is when I stop talking, so I'm going to do another blade here. Now I'm going to go forward to my next chunk. And so basically what you're doing is you're going through your video and you're trimming it down so that it's only the parts where you're talking. You can zoom out of your timeline so that it's smaller, and then you can just quickly go through more sections because we don't really need to be too thorough on this. All we really want to do is only keep the ones where you're talking and get rid of when there's dead space. So I'm just zooming out. This one's really small, probably won't use that. I can see that as the podcast progressed that I have longer speaking chunks. So you can tell that I was getting more and more comfortable being on camera. I'm still new to podcasts, so I'm still not 100% comfortable on camera, because it isn't that once you get good on camera, you're good on all platforms. You have to actually practice platform specific content. So if you're good at YouTube videos, doesn't necessarily mean you're good at Reels. You need to start practicing Reels. And if you're good on recorded videos, doesn't necessarily mean you're good at lives. You're gonna have to practice any form of speaking or being on camera as you change the type of videos you're creating. Knowing that, just be extra gracious with yourself and know that you're still learning and it's okay. That seems like the end. I'm just not really talking that much. Okay, so I was able to cut this down to only 30 minutes. Whew, I talked a lot. Okay, so now I'm going to go through these sections and listen if there's something that I really enjoyed that I want to use as a video clip. You can press the L button down and it's just going to speed up how you talk so that it's easier to skim through until you find a part that you really like. So as I'm going through this, if I don't like something, I just like to delete it, because I might be able to come back to this later, and to do so, the simpler, the shorter the clips are, the less overwhelming it is and less intimidating it is. And if I really do need some audio, I can always go back to the original. Once you find like a clip that you like, then I suggest making a new timeline for that specific clip, because it's going to be easier for you to organize this. So if you want to add multiple timelines to this video, you're going to press here and you're going to add this little view, tab view. This is going to allow you to easily skip from one to the next. So I'm going to make a new timeline. So I'm going to go over to my timeline, right click and press create new, and this is going to be clip 1. I'm going to change my settings again, so my format, and I'm going to change it to 1080 versus 1920. So you're basically reversing those numbers. So instead of horizontal, it's vertical. It's the same dimensions, it's just how it's viewed. Great. Okay, so I have this, and then I can go back over to my master. I can copy this, paste it, and I have my clip. So I'm going to check how long this is. I want to keep this under a minute, because if it's under a minute, then it does also classify as a YouTube short. That means I'm able to post it on YouTube, Reels, and TikTok. So I'm just going to go in now and tighten it. So I want to make sure that there's no quiet space in the beginning. So see, I'm like quiet here at the beginning, and then I start talking. So I'm just going to trim that to the beginning. Perfect. And then it's the same thing at the end. You just want to trim it at the end. You could just render it like this, but I suggest you do one more step and just color it a little bit to make it look a little bit more on brand. So you go over to the color tab. This is where you have control over your video files. So I like to use my curves. So this is my first curve, and what this does is it adjusts your darks and your lights. So you can, I'm just going to move in my darks at the bottom, and in the middle I like to put it up a little bit so it's a little bit brighter. I also like to adjust my blue, because I want my blue to look more teal. So I can go into hue versus hue, and you can see here I have my blue spike. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a dot, so I'm just going to press down, another dot beside this blue. I want to make sure that this isn't exactly on the blue, that it's far away, because the more smooth the curve is, the more smooth the color change will be. So then I put another dot in the middle, so I'm just going to hold that down. Now I can move this around. So you can see as I move this, that blue background shifts. So I'm going to shift it so it's more like my blue. There we go. So I like that. And then I'm also going to go into this circle. It's like the circle of the bullseye. And here I can increase my contrast. It's like my contrast. I like to increase my shadows so it's just overall brighter. And then my color temperature, to see if my color temperature could be just a little bit cooler. So what your color temperature does is it allows you to choose what is going to be white in your video. So like you can see here, I have this picker. What I can do is I can click on something that's white in my image, and then it's going to adjust so that that's white, and then it knows how to make the other colors go with it because it knows what white is. So this is good. Now once that's done, you can go over to the spaceship. This is where you render it out. So for this, I like to name it something that I'm talking about so it's easier for me to remember later. Now I'm going to change my format from QuickTime to MP4, and I'm going to do add to render queue. Now it's going to ask me where I want to save it. I'm just going to save it on my desktop and then render all. So this is just going to edit this out for me. There we go. And now I have my video on my desktop. You can see it's right here. So now if I want to post this onto Instagram Reels from my computer, I can go into Instagram Reels and I can go to create. I can select from my computer, select my reel. I'm going to want to change the dimensions so that it is vertical like this. It allows me to trim in here, but I don't really need to do that. and then I can write my caption with it, and then I can just share it, and my reel is up, all from the comfort of my computer. If you're getting started in Reels, I strongly suggest you download my Reels blueprint. In it, I show you all the gear you need, and I give you some ideas for what topics you should make your first Reels about. And remember, messy action is always better than no action.